Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we're looking at the Nebulon B Frigate. Now, most people recognize this as the Rebel Alliance medical frigate, but this is actually just a kind of subclass, and the Rebel Alliance had kind of converted it for purely medical purposes. And our write up today comes from the old original source book. So, this is what we have here. During the early days of the rebellion, the Alliance had significant success attacking the Imperial supply convoys. The Imperial Navy was loath to relegate its expensive Star Destroyers to escort duty. The TIE fighters, being unable to jump through hyperspace with the convoys, leaving them vulnerable to attacks at their destination until joined by new escort ties. For a while, the Empire employed corvettes as escorts, but they were easily outmatched by the more maneuverable Rebel X-wings. What was needed was a vehicle cheaper than the Death Star, but similarly equipped with heavy firepower to deal with large attackers, and capable of carrying TIE fighters to defeat smaller, faster enemies. The Empire found the perfect solution to the Quad Drive Yards Nebulon or in the Quad Drive Yards Nebulon B frigate. The Nebulon B is well armed with turbo lasers and laser batteries, has good shields and tractor beam generators, has very good long range sensors, and can carry two TIE fighter squadrons. So we're looking at 24 starfighters. So whenever I was getting that incorrect before, I was thinking it was 48 to a squadron. I am way wrong. It's only 12 TIE fighters or 12 fighters to a squadron, 24 in all. The frigate is slow and unwieldy, as are most vessels of this size, but its ties can handle anything too quick for small or small for the frigate. Since the Imperial Navy has begun regulating or regularly assigning Nebulon big frigates to escort duty, the Rebel X-wing pilots have found that attacking Imperial convoys are no longer the joyride it once was. Unable to stand up to prolonged dogfights with ties supported by the frigate's heavy guns, the rebels have had to resort to lightning fast hit and run raids against enemy transports. And even then, the rebellion has lost more pilots and ships than it can afford. Fortunately, several frigates have defected or have been captured by the rebellion. Not only has this given the rebel fleet some much needed firepower and ship transport capabilities, it has also resulted in the boldness or bloodless capture of several Imperial convoys in their entirety. More than one transport convoy has set out under the protection of an escort frigate only to discover, once in deep space, that their escort was actually uh, rebel privateers. So that's what was originally written. So when we really look at this, even though iconically we see this as a rebel alliance ship, this is really an imperial ship that's been captured. Um, and I've looked at it this way for many years, but I think most people probably do assume that this is just a Rebel Alliance ship because, in a lot of regards, it looks more like a Rebel Alliance ship. Um, when you look at the nose, it looks something like something that would have been built from Mount Kalmar uh, by the Mount Kalmarians. And you look at Home One and all that, and it has a very similar look to it. Um, so in that regard, it does look like it would fit for that. All right. So what we have a nice escort ship, has a length of 300 meters. We're looking at a crew of 854, and it needs 66 gunners. So if it can run with a skeleton crew of 307. I've said this before. This is one of the big things when you look at different genres. Um, Star Wars is always a man heavy kind of system or genre. Um, I guess in some regards, kind of like how the original Star Trek. I mean, Star Trek, you had to have a little bit more manpower. Everything wasn't as automated as we got later on. So we can have about 75 passengers, typically troops, say Marines. We have 6,000 metric tons of cargo capacity, and it can actually fly around for about 2 years. Has a hyperdrive of times 2 and a backup hyperdrive of times 12. And of course, a ship like this is definitely going to have a nav computer, so they can um, course correct if they ever need to. Has a maneuverability of 1D, like our write up had said. These are not big. These aren't giant starfighters. These are big capital ships. So it's not really meant to run out and engage with the starfighters themselves as much as they can have the starfighters on board to really help do that for them. Has a space of 4, and it is atmosphere capable, so it can go 850 kilometers an hour. Has a hull of 3D plus 2, so we're kind of respectable in that regard for the ship that it is. Has a shields of 2D, so that's pretty on par for our standard. All right, our sensor packet that it says is a significant package is looking pretty good. So we have a passive sensor that goes out to 4 kilometers. We can actively scan out to 7.5 kilometers. We can do a search up to 15 kilometers and a focus at 400 meters. So, trying to have a ship that is really outfitted with a good battery of weapons. We do have 12 turbo laser batteries. We have 6 in the front, 3 on the left, and 3 on the right. We do have a fire control of 3D for those. Pretty respectable there. Damage is 4D, so that's just kind of a standard. I would say that's our standard range of damage. We have 12 laser cannons, 6 of those being in the front, 2 on the left, 2 on the right, and 2 in the back. So this is a ship really meant to drive towards whatever it's fighting and attack it in that regard. Has a fire control of 2D, which would be kind of a standard. Now, these are at starfighter scale. So this is really to help pick off any starfighters that are attacking it. And it only has 2D damage. So these laser cannons are kind of underpowered for what they're trying to do. They're going to be an annoyance. They're going to try and keep starfighters away. But this is really more of I'll say kind of like a bee sting towards a bear in a way. But we do have a lot of them, and you're taking fire from a ship while you're trying to attack it, and then you also have the possibility of 24 starfighters trying to attack on you as well. So, it does work out in a lot of regards. So we do have 2 tractor beam projectors, which have a fire control of 2D and a damage of 4D. So pretty much standard there. Nothing overly spectacular on that, but the iconic design of this that they had come up with, and knowing that we do have like an access port that we saw the Millennium Falcon in The Empire Strikes Back, was pretty neat to see. So we do have a little diagram here. So we do have a main communications deck all the way up on the top and the front. We do have a long communications array, which is our big antenna sticking all the way up there. We have our crew decks, and the galley is top forward. Just underneath that big bulbous area there, we have our officers' quarters. Below that is passenger quarters. Then we have our main bridge. So when we look at this is a unique design to sit here and say that our main bridge is sitting, let's see, somewhere in here. Somewhere around in here. So I believe this is going to be our officers. There's our officers general, so this would be most likely our bridge. So that's an interesting design. All right, so we have front turbo lasers, front laser cannons. We have primary sensors sitting in the back there. We have our bulk storage, escape pods, and one of the docking bays. I've always kind of wondered exactly where the talking to the designers and that, as well as the West End Games people, where they figured they were going to get 24 fighters in here. But we do have a forward docking bay in the back here, and we have a second docking bay all the way in the back. So as we start going back on our spine, we have our short range sensor communications, our secondary communications stack, and our access boom, which of course we remember seeing the Falcon attached to. We have a docking tube in the back here, our docking bay in the back. So way back here towards the top is our docking bay. Or our secondary docking bay. So whatever fighters, I don't know if we're going to have 12 fighters in the front and 12 in the back, or however they decide to work that. We have our main engineering, and then hyperdrive control deck is all the way in the back there. And then on the top is our deflector shield generator. So this is our deflector shield. Um, for a ship that we really didn't see a lot of, I do believe that they did put one into Rogue One. But as far as really seeing it, I think maybe for the Battle of Endor, I do kind of remember. I know it's been a little bit since I've watched them, um, I, but before that, I think I've watched the trilogy at least 100 times by now. Um, and if I ever catch it on, you'll see me dumbfoundedly just stare straight at the screen and watch them. I've always been happy to watch Star Wars. More so on the original, and I'm willing to, I'm not bashing the prequel trilogy. It was George's single vision for how this all happened, and understanding some of the backstory, you know, um, knowing that George had made the first movie, figuring he may never get the rest of the movie, so he condensed everything into one, and it took off, and he was kind of given a green light to do two more. So then he had to kind of fill in gaps that he kind of had cut out to make it the trilogy that we remember. So now you see, the an extended, revision of what he originally had planned, not thinking that he would ever be able to get the rest of it. And then now you have to kind of come up with, how does all this fall? And I know a lot of people kind of knock it down because it's talking about politics and stuff like that. But as sad as it is to kind of point out, look at what our own country is doing right now. It's politics that's really kind of dividing us. So hopefully, what we can see is, if we can get over our own greed at times, if we can get over ourselves at times, and we can do things for the greater good, um, maybe we have a better chance. Uh, I always hope for the better chance, but you know, it's a very plausible thing that I had seen back then, and I was an adult watching it. I wasn't a kid, so because I grew up watching the original ones in the movies, because that was the only way that we ever got to see them. It wasn't redone on TV and all that until I was a teenager, really. So I know I'm aging myself, unfortunately, but that's just the way things were. All right, so here's our ship for the day. It is a very nice, iconic ship. I hope you're still enjoying the series. I enjoy bringing it to you every day, and we'll see you in the next video.